Lisa, thank you so much for joining me this morning. So excited to have you on, talk life after ball, and share your SMU story. If you would, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, Lisa Rawlins, Associate A.D. for Student Athlete Success. I've been here at SMU for 15 years and had a few different roles here and have loved every second of it. It's a really great place to be, and I'm very fortunate.
We were just catching up before. You're officially on your third AD. You've
Yep.
seen a lot at SMU, especially in these last few years, that have really ramped up the athletic department. But as we do on all these, we want to start kind of from the beginning, right? You're an athlete yourself, a student athlete through your college experience from Canada. Played basketball in college, then transferred schools to switch to equestrian. So you've seen it from multiple lenses. Tell us a little bit about your college experience as a student athlete that maybe gives us a little insight in why you were so motivated to get into athletics as a career.
Yeah. So, yes, I was a basketball athlete my freshman, sophomore year. I played at a small school up in Canada where I'm from. And I rode, trained, and showed horses my whole life. My life was basketball and horses, really. And so at a certain point, while I was playing, I was being recruited by Fresno to ride. And I thought, what an opportunity. I knew I didn't want to stay in Canada. I knew I wanted to go to the US. To me, that
Mhm.
was my ticket. And so I got my undergrad at Fresno State in psychology. And when I was there, I had a really amazing athletic academic advisor. Her name was Linda Ganaway. Linda, if you ever listen to this, I would love to see you. And I remember sitting across from her desk one day, and she was helping me. We're just doing advising at one point in time. And I just thought, man, if I could do what she's doing, it wouldn't feel like a job. And that
Mm.
was the moment I knew I wanted to be in college athletics. There was no question at that point. So from there, I graduated. I went on to Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a really amazing graduate assistant program. They hire a lot of GAs, but they put in a lot of professional development in their GAs. And then they have a higher ed program there. You can major in that, but they have several different concentrations. And the one that a lot of people go there to do is intercollegiate athletic administration. So getting that master's combined with the experience at OU, I thought, well, I'll be really primed for a great job after that. So I did 2 years there, kind of working in academics, working with various sports. I even worked under the sports psychologist there. So I got a whole lane view of, disabilities and how that works in learning. Even the sports psych part got a little bit of that, but that gave me the kind of groundwork on the differences that you see with football and basketball and what that culture is versus the other sports, kind of the roadblocks and hangups that they have academically, but even just getting into an institution. That was a really good education there. Those 2 years set the stage for everything in my career. So from there, I went to Central Florida, University of Central Florida, spent 2 years there. I was a learning specialist in academics, and then on to SMU from there.
So I love that you have kind of a multiple lens here, right? You from the student athlete, and then you've worked at a few programs to understand kind of the athletics and support that they're giving their athletes. We've had a few athletes, SMU athletes, on our SMU stories, but share a little bit about the expectation of a student athlete, and then historically what schools provide them. Because, like, we've all seen the commercial, right? 99% of college athletes are going to go pro in something else, right? What historically has kind of been the status quo of what school programs give their athletes and how they support them outside of sports, and then kind of the demand for them to walk, kind of both lives as an athlete and a student.
Yeah. That's an interesting question, and that I could probably spend 30 minutes just on that question because it's
Uh-huh.
changed a lot over the years. Back when I first got into the field, so that would have been 2006. So academic support was definitely there then. There's kind of almost like two kinds of support that's really needed. There's academic support that's needed to support a student athlete, but then there's also
Uh-huh.
the student athlete development side. That's kind of like how are you preparing them for the after? How are you giving them leadership skills or life skills, etc.? And there was always those kind of areas in departments, but it's really, I think, been the last decade that part, the student athlete development part, has really gotten focused.
Mm.
So when you're a student athlete coming in, let's just talk about football and basketball, because those are really the sports that are in need of the most support all the time, not so much the other ones. Um, but when you look at it, just generally speaking, football and basketball, oftentimes they're coming in very underprepared because they're coming from schools that aren't necessarily preparing them for that. They're preparing them very well to play, but
Uh-huh.
not much preparing them for the academic part of it. Um, and SMU is obviously a rigorous institution. So if you don't have the support here, then you're kind of not setting them up for success. And so let's see here. Where will I go with the rest of this question? Well, let's talk about it in terms of SMU. So again, I said every place has academic support and then had some version of student athlete development, and that's just only amped up. But here, when I first got here, there was the Learning Enhancement Center, and that's the academic unit for all sports. And they had a few people that helped out with athletics and whatnot, but there needed to be more even. They didn't have a specialized athletic academic support unit. And so that evolved over time and that was built. Eventually, we were able to have several full-time reading writing specialists. We had a full tutoring program. It
Wow.
didn't matter what subject, we had the tutors for it. And you need that. You got to have that kind of support. So that evolved, and that's in a really great place, has been in a really great place. And I was fortunate to get to start at that point. Maybe we'll touch back on that at some point.
Mhm.
Then now you combine that academic support, meaning that they're going to have somebody kind of holding their hand the whole way through with the student athlete development side, meaning, all right, you got your academics in place. All right, so here, we're going to kind of pull you along this way. We're going to try to lead you to the water of meeting some people and starting to network. Eventually, we want to get you kind of smelling that great smell of a resume and the interview prep stuff and kind of going, all right, I realize I need to start developing that way. That is tougher to get them to go that way and lead that way because they're thinking, look, academics, I need the support. I got to pass. I know I've got to pass to be eligible. I'm going to do that.
Right.
But sometimes the after part seems too far away. So they're not jumping on that train as fast as they should. But that's what our jobs are. Um, so anyhow, I think that SMU is in a really incredible place and that we're resourced so well between all the academic support and then our unit. Not every place is resourced this way. And so we're very, very fortunate here. So anyhow, I don't know that I completely
No, that
hit
was great.
that
That was
question,
that was
but it's
exactly
lots of thoughts.
it's a unique way you phrase it in that, yeah, they're so focused on their athletic requirements that it's hard to get them to see in the next 4 years what the roadmap net needs to be to kinda prepare them. So, going back to your story, you see it from a large program, Oklahoma, UCF, maybe a little more on the up and coming wave that SMU was. How did your SMU opportunity come about, and what did you know about SMU before you even came here?
Yeah. So I knew about SMU while I was at Oklahoma. Certainly when you're going to conferences and whatnot, you start to
Uh-huh.
meet people. So I knew about SMU. And in fact, I remember coming to our regional N4A conference here. That would have been circa 2007-ish. And Dr. Turner was one of the speakers. And we then got to go tour SMU after. So that would be the pivotal moment that like I really knew SMU.
Mm.
Um, and Dr. Turner that day spoke about the death penalty. He spoke about a lot of the history. It's funny, these things that stay in your mind. But that would have been my first introduction to really knowing it. So I knew the rich history, knew they're really good at football at one point in time, knew it was a very rigorous institution. So I kind of had all those basics. How I ended up getting here, though, when I was at Oklahoma, I think it was 2 or 3 GAs that were in my cohort ended up taking jobs at SMU. I
Wow.
went to Central Florida, but about 2 years in, I'd kind of wanted to get back this way, get back
Uh-huh.
west. Ultimately, actually, I wanted to be back in California. So Texas is a little closer.
Yeah,
Let's go to
yeah.
SMU. So they were what was happening was my friends had been telling me they're starting a new department. It's kind of like at the time they were thinking kind of academics, kind of student athlete development. You should look into this job and apply. The football coach is really backing it. Apply and see what you think. And lo and behold, came on the interview, loved it. And it was a great fit. I loved the direction that it was going to go. So that right there was m- uh, a point in time that I knew SMU is really committed to getting there, like to
Huh.
getting to the top. Like the fact that they were trying to build and create a whole new unit for support And then I knew some of the other initiatives that June Jones had going and trying to really shape athletics within the institution. And I thought, this is great. Like this is awesome. All you want is a department that's really pouring into the resources there. And so that was the beginnings, the really humble beginnings of getting to SMU.
That's amazing. What you mentioned the new program they're developing. Is that what all the other top programs kind of have in place, or were we behind in terms of our
Yeah, we were a little bit
support to the
behind.
big? Okay,
Yeah, we were a little bit behind. The way that they were supporting the student athletes, it made a lot of sense, and that unit is great. It's just that you almost need another layer and another level of support for student athletes. So we were a little bit behind in that regard.
so you step onto campus. It sounds like it's the wave is kind of shifting and tide is shifting as June comes in, knowing how to build a bigger program and kind of what resources are needed. Where was your attention focused at, and kind of walk us through at that starting point to 7-8 years ago as you start to get life after ball and that program put in place.
Yeah. Okay. So there was obviously a lot of little nuance and little steps, but where we'll pick
Totally.
up from was let's see here. We had a few different people come in. We had a great director that was the very first director of the department. And a few months in, there were some changes already and lots of things going, all good things. But we'll pick up from where I was put in place as director of the unit that was going to be the academic unit that was going
Uh-huh.
to lead our student athletes. Our what we were calling them at that time was at-risk student athletes, meaning student athletes that needed maybe more attention in terms
Uh-huh.
of the academic side. So picking up there, we had several academic counselors, and their job was the advising portion, making sure that they were getting into the degree plans that they wanted to, and then the necessary support behind it. I think the really pivotal parts were getting the tutoring program going and getting the learning specialists, meeting our reading writing specialists. SMU it's a liberal arts school, so if you don't come in having really strong reading writing backgrounds, you're going to
Uh-huh.
need the support to help build that up. So that was building that up was really great. And I guess what I would say in these years is when you are in the trenches kind of day in, day out with these athletes, and they're checking in with you every day, you're getting them to the places that they need to go, and then kind of seeing how they shape and evolve each semester after each semester. That really is your that I couldn't have asked for more in terms of experience to give me the foresight to know what the gaps were to build life after ball.
Right.
Um, so I was leading that department. I was the football academic advisor, and I ended up being in that role for about 10 years. And so when you think of all of the athletes that you have come in, they all come in at different stages. They all evolve at different stages. And then you'd see somebody at the end get their degree, but you were able to have a front row seat as to maybe what the gaps were, what was lacking that could have helped them get to be at the end and be a better place at the end. What could have made it easier or what could have prepared them better, all of those things.
Uh-huh.
And so then that was all happening. But then I guess by just virtue of being in that position, I met so many alumni, so many former players and just alumni in general. And I knew that there was such an appetite to help. Like, that was the one common thing that everybody would always say, if you need anything, or if these guys need
Right.
anything, let me know. And that wasn't just them saying that. They were really serious. So anyhow, those were amazing years. Fast forward to December of 2017 when Coach Dykes was introduced. And I remember at
Okay.
his press conference, he talked about life after ball. And so he was dead serious about that at that conference, and I got to credit at that press conference. I got to credit him because he always thought, I don't want to just use these players up. Like, sure, they're getting academic support, but I feel like we can do so much more within our program. And so he really wanted to push that forward. And so, it took again, we won't get into the little nuance in between, but the point that it really got legs. I would say we knew that connecting and networking was one of the biggest things that they needed. We
Right.
knew that there was basic career prep stuff they needed. And then I always felt that one of the biggest gaps in this is what, again, in the advising part, when I was spending those years in the trenches with them, the exposure part was just so limited. They just had no idea what's out there to do. So kind of with those frameworks in mind, we started thinking about how we can really build this. And let's see. Trying to think of like the real highlight, the points to really hit. So I guess we'll just say credit Coach Dykes for wanting to build it.
Mhm.
And then also credit our administration. You know, when I think of Rick Hart and then Kurt Pogotter was the sport admin at the time, nobody said no. Everyone was like, yeah, this is needed.
Yeah.
There was full
Yeah.
support. And
And in
then,
your mind, was it, let's build kind of a curriculum, a structured program of saying, okay, every athlete within SMU, you guys are now part of this life after ball focus and commitment. And through these, there are metrics, there are things we're going to do from the day you step on campus to the day we end? Or was it, all right, let's take this kind of year by year and kind of figure out what resources we need? But it sounds like you kind of had the 10 years leading up to this to kind of understand what pieces
yeah,
need to be put in place.
it was a mix of both to your question. At that time, we weren't thinking about expanding to all sports. So that
Mm,
foresight, I wish I could say that foresight was there. That wasn't there. But what you're saying about in terms of putting it together, yes, that's how I was thinking of it in football. Yes. And I think priority number one was thinking about this. This needed to be a brand. There needed to be like an identifiable brand, like program and brand,
mhm.
both the same, that people can
Yeah.
go, I want to be part of that. I know exactly what that is. But then that's for the external. On the internal side, you want the athletes seeing the same thing. Like I see what that is. I can visually see because I see the logo, but
Mhm.
then I also know what the programming is behind it. And funny story, at that time, we had a really amazing football creative staff. Like that, they were really well staffed in terms of creative. And I had said we need this logo, like this is step one, because I have to start to be able to identify or attach everything we do to this program and this logo.
Right.
And we want to start building the socials out. Um, they built that logo in like 5 minutes, and it was the
Mhm.
coolest thing. It doesn't look like what it does now, but it was a tie on the I think it was. You may have seen that.
Yeah.
Um, I'd done it in about 5 minutes and would go, bam, that's it. That's what we're sticking with. And so from there, it was everything you're doing attaching to that. And what I didn't know and what I wasn't thinking about at the time is, but when you're starting something in football, you have the brand, the power, the machine that football is, amplifying
Mhm.
it and driving it. And that was genius, starting it in football, because once you do it in football, everything else can follow.
Right.
We
Right.
weren't I wish I could say we were thinking that way. We weren't. It just
Yeah.
hindsight's 2020, and I look at it now and I'm like, "Man, we really played it right," even though that maybe not what we
Right.
were thinking at the time. Now, at a certain point in time when it did start to get program and it was really solid running in football, we did start to think, expanding it to other sports. Um, and it was at the point in time that Coach Dykes left that we kind of re-examined and felt like we have the network that's big enough now. We can support this for all of the
Mhm.
sports. Let's do it. And it actually was really easy. We didn't have to do much thinking again because it was built in football. The brand was established. It just
Yep.
meant now you're opening up these events to all sports and tracking to all sports. And now you got to infiltrate the other sports so that they know about it and can start to
Mhm.
utilize it.
So for the external, for the alumni, for the Dallas business and statewide community, how should we what is life after ball? And then for those athletes, from the internal, what is life after ball for them, kind of stepping back and explaining it to our audience.
Yeah.
What is the greater purpose and how's it built out?
Yep, exactly. So we'll start with the external. So anybody, any alum and non-alums too, there's plenty of non-alums that just identify with the mission and want to help. And a lot of times it's former athletes themselves that live in Dallas. They may not have went to SMU, but they know about the program because they were an athlete they want to contribute to. So in terms of what is it, I think it's important to just for people to know there is 3 pillars to it. It's not just simply that we it is that we want them to get a job at the end, but as we all know, you don't just snap your fingers and get a job at the end. I mean, for some, it will work out that way, but there is a lot of work that goes into it, and so that is the connections part. So our goals are to be able to literally hand them connections on a silver platter. Attend these events, these networking things that we do, and you will meet people, and those will continue to be your connections.
Mhm.
So then that's the first piece of it. So we do a lot of different networking things. And then the second pillar is the exposure pillar. And this is the how do you know what you want to do with your life if you don't know what's out there to do part. Certainly networking is going to help with that. But we put on talks several times a semester with a different speaker, different industry each time, and have our athletes come in and just learn what is out there. Like, did you ever know anything about the insurance industry? Did you ever know about anything about commercial real estate? What about financial services or all these sorts of things. And so we do those several times a semester. But then the third pillar is the preparation piece. And this is sort of the career center piece. We can't send them out and not know how to do a resume. We can't send them out and not know how to interview for a job. And so we run what we call our professional development series several times once a semester, so twice an academic year. And that's workshops on the basic career and life prep stuff. So think elevator pitch, networking, taxes and credit, LinkedIn, interview prep. And then our staff is available to help them one-to-one on all of those things as they go through. And then internships are a big part of that pillar. So that was also kind of going back to the beginnings in the step one of we needed to build partnerships with individuals and companies that were willing to partner with us, knowing these are student athletes. They have more limited time, even in the summer. Can you partner with us to provide them an experience? And so
Right.
the last few summers, we've had over 150 opportunities. And so to the external folks out there listening, we're always needing opportunities, internship opportunities, especially in things like engineering, financial services. Can never get enough of those, sports
Right.
as well. Um, and then the other part of that pillar too, we started a digital resume book, and every semester we'll get our seniors in to start working on their resumes. And then we'll put their resumes into the folders of the industries that they're interested in going into, and then we send this out to the network. And the idea is that all of these people that are involved in Life After Ball, they get eyes on these resumes, can hit forward on that email to anybody else that they know that's hiring, so that our athletes' resumes get in as many hands and in front of as many eyes as possible. So that's all that pillar is. So the reason I was saying this and going into depth for the external for everybody to know is because if you're getting involved in this from a business perspective, you likely are interested in hiring athletes and you want access to this population. But you want to know they're actually developing these kids. They're putting the time in. So if you do see a resume from an athlete, you're going to know they've been taught how to do it and it's been edited. You're going to
Yep.
know they've sat with somebody and they've actually prepped for their interview. Because if we want people to continue to hire our athletes, we got to put good products out there and they need to do a good job. And so I want the network and the people out there to know how much does really go into the development of them so that when they get to the stage of you to be hired, you go, okay, this is a good candidate. I want to keep hiring from here. So that's it
And
from sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say I mean, we have a couple student athletes come to every one of our events, right, in our partnership,
Yep,
and these kids are impressive. They know how to talk well. They're comfortable sitting at tables with new folks, and
yep,
it's just a credit to the work they're putting in and the support that you guys have built for them.
yeah, no doubt. And then on the inside for the athletes, you want the athletes to go, "All right, I've gotta start somewhere." And that's the beauty of Life After Ball and the program, the way that's developed. It's not freshmen do this, sophomores do this, juniors, etc.
Mhm.
Any part of it is available to them at any time. And so they can, maybe feel overwhelmed as a freshman when they're getting in, and then sophomore years when they kind of pick it up. But we tell them on the front end in recruiting, it'll meet you where you're at. The program will, but the earlier you start, the more gains you're going to get on the way through. It's just simple like that.
Right.
And so typically what happens is you'll have some of them come in that are really eager and they're showing up to every single thing. And then you have ones that are not sure, and they're not gonna kinda dip their feet in the water yet, but what
Mhm.
usually happens is a teammate or a friend, somebody will kinda pull them along eventually, and, eventually they pick it all up, and so I would say that there's so many different parts of it between the networking and the pillars, all of the things that we do. Every athlete's gonna touch some point of Life After Ball at some point in time in their careers, so they're all utilizing it. But again, the athletes needed to know it was a brand and programming that they can attach to and take part of. So that was the key in the messaging from the jump.
In incredible, and can you touch on some of the amazing partnerships you guys have made to date, whether it's with Dillard's or Mizzen and Main and some of the other things that are
Oh,
it's amazing what you guys have and the support you have.
but it's all just such a testament. The whole reason this program works is because of the alumni. And I shout that from the rooftops everywhere I go and in the recruiting presentations is this program would not work if we weren't in Dallas, Texas, one, and had the, business infrastructure we did in the city. But then
Yeah.
we have amazing alumni, a lot of them here, and they all want to help. That's just the SMU way. And if people don't know that, like, hear it now. Like, that's just the SMU way. People wanna help. If you say you
Mhm.
went to SMU here in Dallas, that means something, and if you meet another alum, then they're gonna go immediately, there's a connection, they wanna help. So, the whole premise and the whole again, the reasoning, if we didn't have people that wanted to pour into this, it would just stop. Like, we wouldn't be able to put on the networking stuff. We'd run out of people to connect the athletes to. But our alumni show up and show out all the time and wanting to help our athletes. And I think even it just goes to show this partnership that we're building with you guys. You guys are an alumni group that the whole point is to foster SMU relationships.
Mhm.
And then you see a program like this or hear about a program like this, and then you're saying, yeah, let's work together. We want to help. It goes to exactly the whole point of this all and why it works. I don't think I answered your question. I got so excited about talking about the
No,
network.
I think just maybe that's it's a good kind of transition into some of the success stories that kind of resonate with you
Mhm.
since you started this, whether it's a partnership like having Dillard's donate, or is it an actual athlete that came in green from the recruiting process, and then next thing you know, he's now hiring folks. Maybe touch on one or two of your favorite success stories or partnerships you've been built to
Ugh.
date.
There's too many, and
Yeah.
that was your question that I didn't totally hit on, the partnerships. The alums that have are either, like, they own their own company or maybe they're in a position in their company that they were able to kind of help build or forge these
Hmm.
partnerships with us, um, have just been incredible opportunities, and the thing is that you've gotta have industries of all different types because not everybody's gonna be going to Wall Street
Right.
and getting a finance degree from Cox. Some people wanna do blue collar work, so you have to have all of it, and that's just where I think the partnerships people have stepped up and go, "Here's my business, here's what we do, we need interns." Great, we'll partner. It doesn't matter what it is. So when I think about, gosh, there's too many success stories, Mitch. It's, like when I well, let's go to some of the early beginnings. Rogers Healy. Okay,
Hmm.
everybody knows Rogers. He was one of the very first people I met with Life After Ball. His credit, he goes, "This is really incredible. I love pouring into students and the youth, and I'd love to help. Tell me how I can help." Rogers offered internship, through his company. He's had, definitely double digits in interns between, Rogers, Healy& and Associates and Morrison Sager, his
Yeah.
venture capital company. If there's somebody that wants to meet with him, he'll take the time and sit down and meet with them. Then I think of somebody else too, like, Mike Silverman, CH Investment Partners. Another person who right from the jump has every single part of lab supported every single part of it, had internships, been at networking dinners, any kind of networking event he's showing up to. Anytime you want an athlete to meet with them one-on-one, he makes the time. So those were like the early beginning success stories, but then you think of how things evolved to where a couple years ago we started the VIP dinners. And then we have board of trustee members that take the time to go to sit and have dinner with our athletes
Incredible.
at Steak and Chop House. Like, that's just another really cool evolution and part of the program and a way to, involve our trustees, but for them to put the time into that is huge. So, that's another big thing. All of the internship partnerships that have been built, I just think the number going up every year is really is big.
Yeah.
Um, I also think in terms of the success stories, everybody all of the athletes are at a different pace. Like, some
Mhm.
they get to their senior year, they're going, say, into consulting or going into financial services. Those recruiting cycles are really early. They're on top of it.
Mhm.
They had a job a year before they were done.
Right.
Awesome. Then there's the opposite of that, where you have the other athletes that they're just clawing their way through. They had been interviewing, 10 different interviews and just trying to land something and finally do at a certain point. But then you have other ones that it was just a struggle to figure out what they wanted to do, let alone even get to the interviews. So it's hard to pick out a success story because they've all been in different places and they're
Yeah.
all successes. But I just like to look at the kind of the big picture all the time. And are we able to get them jobs in the end? That's the big metric. And then how many partnerships do we have and how many of the athletes are taking part of it? So those are kind of the things that I try to focus on all the time. But I would just say to the external network is being part of Life After Ball. It doesn't mean you're signing your life away to do a bunch of different events all the time.
Mm.
It really just means that you know about the program and are an ambassador to it. And because there's so many people involved, it may be like get you to networking dinner and I don't even have to ask you to show up to something again for another couple years because there's a lot of people involved that populate these things. But knowing about the program and making further connections for us that help with internships, help with people that want to hire our athletes, just making those connections is just a huge part of the program. So that's being involved doesn't mean that you have to do
Right.
a lot of time. That's
Yeah.
the main thing I want to hit home.
No, this is so incredible for what you and the athletic department have built, and I think it only probably shows even better on the recruiting side. What you guys have had a massive amount of success and growth in the 7 years since the idea kind of came about to what it is today. What is your vision for the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years that you hope this program can live on forever? What needs to be added? Kind of what are some of the big milestones you hope to hit in the near and long-term future?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a really good time to ask that question. With with Life After Ball, where it is now, it's been in all sports now for 3 years, and so we've got a really good foundation to it. And so, kind of the next iteration is this has to live well beyond me and anybody that's currently involved in it.
Mhm.
And so we're now going to kind of change things a little bit within the staff. We're going to have actual staff members that are assigned to teams, and so they're going to be the lab point of contact for each team. So that way, you're kind of able to put people, connect them to the teams more directly, so that individual meetings are easier. Like if you have, say, an assignment of 5 teams rather than all of them, right? You can kind of start meeting with each individually, picking out who is where in the process,
Mm.
separating your seniors so that you kind of know what their plans are, getting their resumes done in a timely fashion, starting to kind of pull them along. And I think pulling them along is really the key, is that when we can get staff members that are directly infiltrated in a team, they just will have a better pulse on each of them at the various stages that they're at. So that's kind of the next iteration of it. Um, and involving more of the staff in each of the various kind of lines in Life After Ball.
Mhm.
So that's going to be kind of coming up next year, and that'll help teach other staff the kind of the inner workings of it so that it can continue. I
Yeah.
think from athlete side, what's really great about it is it doesn't take much to continue it from the athlete side, because when they have gone through it, they don't need an education after as to why they should get involved. They're
Right.
just automatically programmed to stay involved. And so I do see, like, 10 years from now, it's gonna almost be that there isn't so much work kind of trying to reach external people all the time,
Right.
because you're gonna have more that are just naturally remaining connected right from the
Mhm.
jump. Well, that's my
Right.
theory. We'll see if that ends up turning
Yeah.
out. But yes, that's the next iteration of it from a staff perspective and how we're gonna approach it.
I love it. Lisa, this has been incredible. Can't thank you enough for all you do for our student athletes and for SMU. So, what's a good way people can reach out and find you? If you maybe you drop your email or kind of socials, and then we'll make sure we share it within our post as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, first thing is follow Life After Ball or connect with Life After Ball on the LinkedIn. That is where we post all of our kind of activity and what's going on. And so, if anybody wants to get a snapshot as to what the program is, connect there. My email is on there as well, but it's erawlins, ERAWLINS at smu.edu. You can find it on the staff directory. Shoot me an email, shoot me a connection request on that. We also have an Instagram account and X account. So follow the socials. That's the best thing to do, and shoot me an email. Anybody that wants to get involved, it's as simple as shooting me an email. We'll set up a Zoom and we'll talk, and I can then learn kind of what your interests are in terms of being involved in the program. That's it.
Awesome.
It's simple.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again for your time. I'm excited for our 1911 and Life After Ball partnership. We got some exciting stuff to share and work together, and we'll talk soon and catch up as this continues to grow and share the message with the rest of our alumni. Thanks, Lisa.
Appreciate you, Mitch. Thank you.
Thank you to our incredible sponsors, Security National Bank, Hilltop Property Tax, Mignon Steakhouse, Sound of a Rose podcast, and the SMU Cox School of Business for making this all possible.